Okay, that covers the vision part of that. I wanted to ask you, what is the vision of those who are behind the Planning Commission? So that, in a way, you answered that question. What is India's globalization strategy, and where do you see India heading in 2025?
You know, it's very difficult question. Of course, every country has a strategy for, you know, how you become a partner in the global growth. One of the things that is very important for India is, you know, we have certain value systems. We have a value-based society, and not to cast any bad light or aspersion anywhere. We want to hold on to those values which are for all times. And you know, if a society which has the values have eroded, I think that society really is a self-destructive entity. So we want to keep our traditions, but not the kind of traditions that actually push us into a retrograde state. For example, women. You know, we want to mainstream gender everywhere. We don't want to, now we are very consciously trying to put women in all the sectors and not just have a women's dibba separately. Right. You know, that is very important, because, you know, they say you have a zanana dibba and the rest of the train runs on patriarchy.
Martin Luther King had said seperation is unequal. Yeah. Whenever you separate, it will always be unequal.
Absolutely. So although there is a lot of making up to do for past.
But where do you see India in 2025? I mean, if you had this globe in which you could see the world, where would you like to see India in 2025?
I would like to see, you know, I would like to see a dignified, decent lifestyle for people who are in forgotten corners of this country. I'd like to see a dignified lifestyle for people in rural India.
Will you be able to achieve it?
You know, we have our own monitorable targets, which we give every time we articulate a plan. We are also signatories to the Millennium Development Goals. So we feel that we are striving to achieve it, and sometimes we feel that we are falling short. So then we put more resources, but putting more resources is not always the answer, because the resources don't normally reach where they need to reach. So my dream for India is something which our former president talked about in concept of Pura, provision of urban amenities in rural areas, which simply means conveniences, so that people can stay within their environment, so that we don't have this tremendous load on the big cities, the creation of slums, spoiling of environment. So a khushhal India is my dream. Yeah.
Where will India be in 2025 with respect to regional and superpowers?
You know, India has our tradition since the time of Jawaharlal Nehru and Panchsheel principles has always been to keep a friendship with, you know, a global friendship. And there is, you know, we say increasingly difficult to be non-aligned and so on, but we have always had a friendly relations, and we have rarely taken sides. So we really want to keep that tradition, is that Panchsheel tradition of Nehru. I think that still is a very important Nehruvian philosophy for us. We don't want to become, you know, we want to keep our individuality, our identity. We don't want to become clones. That's my dream anyway. Yeah.
Okay. But you think we are on our way to becoming clones?
No, not at all. We have no. I'm just talking, you know, in terms of looking at the world. You said you look at the world in a crystal bowl, and when I look at the world in a crystal bowl, I see all kinds of combinations emerging. But India has to, you know, keep her own individuality, something which was ingrained in us by Mahatma Gandhi, by Nehru, by Azad, by all our, you know, visionary leaders. And I think that sensibility still holds.
If we are to assume that by 2025 there will be other centers of power like China, Russia, India, USA, Japan, European Union, What rifts and alliances do you see between them and India?
I don't see rifts and alliances. We are a country of philosophers. We are a country which has learned to create bridges between people, understandings. We have within our own region, I asked you what regions, because we also talk a lot about regionalism within the country. And we have a hugely diverse country. We're like a subcontinent. And we have been able to live with all these contradictions. It's not easy, but it's not undoable. So I really don't see any conflicts in the future.
Okay, but you see alliances.
I see friendship. I see building of bridges. I see aversion of any kind of violence to humanity. I see a peaceful India heralding a peaceful world.
What issues will define the relationship among these powers? Will it be water, energy, oil, markets, population?
All of these. I think you have really zeroed in on a lot of our economists talk about this next century being a century for water. I think water, every resource is going to become scarce, and and all of us are becoming extremely conscious of what are we going to do about our environment, what are we going to do about water, energy, conservation. We have been, like Mahatma Gandhi said, we have, enough for our need and never enough for our greed.
Okay.
And we have always learned to live with, we have always been taught as in our culture, a certain frugality with which we have all, you and I as children, we learned how to conserve, we learned how to be frugal, even if we could afford. I mean, in my case, I can say I came from a modest family. So I learned how to, I see that presently there's a hugely wasteful generation right under my own nose. So I feel that mentality is something which has to be expunged. We have a good tradition and we have to go back to it.
What will be India's major strength in the global village?
Well, I mean, I would say that India's demographic dividend is a great strength. We have the largest number of youth anywhere in the world who will be carrying the burden, and of course our age profile is also increasing, but the fact remains that this is a country of youth, and most of Europe and North America and Western Europe and all are graying.
They're graying, yes. Despite the fact that India has a large, dynamic, burgeoning middle class of 300 million, there are equal number of people who are in underclass. Where do you see them in 2025?
I see them having come out of the spiral of poverty. I see them as having been able to, there's this poverty line, which is something that we are continuously trying to define, because what is consumption poverty, what is income poverty, what is asset poverty, we are always trying to define it. I feel that I see them having come out of that and being the middle class becoming a larger middle class, and there's some redistribution of assets, redistribution of land to the landless, dignity to the farmer, to the cultivator, and farmers. When I say farmers, I'm thinking a lot about women, because a lot of our work, agriculturists are women today. So and artisans, we have the, next to agriculture, we have the highest number of people employed in handlooms and handicrafts today. I see them as coming out of the spiral of poverty. Fingers that produce the greatest beauty, today they are below poverty line, and I see that whole paradigm changing.
Do you believe that India has 300 million strong middle class, or is this number exaggerated?
Yeah, that is the number that I feel is a realistic number.
It's a realistic
number. I think it's a realistic number.
To what extent India's internal fault lines like caste, region, religion and abject poverty hold India back from its rise to super?
That's a major problem. That's a major problem.
Which one of
caste, definitely class, communal divides, all these fissures, they are definitely holding